Well, here we go. The big wrap. We're live after Tennessee didn't get a chance to run up the score against Missouri. Instead, it was Eli Drinkwitz who had the last word as Tennessee drops their final road game, which is good for Tennessee because they're not very good on the road this year. They drop their final road game and lose to Missouri 36-7. So Caleb, I've got a lot of thoughts about this game in which I think a Tennessee team showed up incredibly flat. I'm not exactly sure why, but let's start with you. What are some quick takeaways before we get to the message board? Already one person saying worse than South Carolina last year. I can't go that far because Tennessee had so much to play for and was considered such a better team beforehand, but this is a big orange dud laid, and there's no way to put a pretty face on it.
Yeah, I got 5 takeaways, but there's really only 2. And the 2 major takeaways are one, let's bring up Dave's favorite word, gap integrity. Tennessee was complete how they were it was the Brady Cook and Cody Schrader show because Tennessee could not stay in position. They were constantly out of position. I don't know if I don't want to accuse them of not playing with their hair on fire. I just think they were consistently they were out schemed. The front 7 was out schemed by Eli Drinkwitz, and they were completely out of position multiple times. That's the defensive side. The offensive side.
Let me weigh in on that 1 second.
Okay.
Because I want to go to the offensive side, and I want to get to all your takeaways for sure. I think when you lose that bad against a team that's similarly talented, it's not just out. This is my theory. I want to bounce it off you. It's not just out coach. It's not just out efforted, which we have seen on our message board, or outplayed. It's kind of everything, isn't it? You just got. I mean, when you get beat like that, it's all it's like all the above, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was all of the above. It was everything, and it was. A lot of people are going to attack Tennessee secondary because of how efficient Brady Cook was. That's not going to be me, and the reason that's not going to be me is because I don't think the secondary, outside of that one busted coverage to open the second half, they weren't really behind Brady Cook being so efficient. The front 7 was because they were constantly out of position, and it was so easy for Brady Cook to make plays because of that. I think, again, we talked about this leading into the week. Missouri runs a zone read offense with quick passes and quick slants consistency. That requires linebackers staying in spy and staying in the right position in zone, and it requires ends not collapsing and edge rushers not collapsing. Everybody's going to blame the defensive tackles, the Omar Norman Lotz and Amari Thomases. They can only do so much. It's on the ends to make sure that they stay in position, and on the linebackers to make sure that they have that middle of the field and the out routes covered. None of them did that in this game. They were completely caught off guard. Every single time Missouri had a play called, Tennessee seemed to go the other way. Missouri's offense is designed. It's an old Butch Jones offense. It's designed to catch you out of position. It is designed to, you hate to use the word, to trick you. And they tricked Tennessee a lot in this game. That's what it is. That's what it was.
All right, let's get your thoughts on the message board. Hit that like and subscribe button so we can get to more people. But I want your thoughts as Tennessee with a woeful performance on the road against Missouri. You want to go through the rest of your takeaways quickly before I have some thoughts as well? But again, we want your thoughts on the message board. I got one quick takeaway, and that is we underestimated in retrospect Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, and Darnell Wright. This is the type of game where you show up without great effort and maybe talent can win you a game. But this Tennessee team didn't have great effort from the get, and there wasn't the talent there to save it. Caleb.
Yes. So there's a few things on that. I'm going to say number 2, the second biggest thing, drive killing mistakes. Now, a drive killing mistake is not just a turnover, which Tennessee had 3 of those. Joe Milton had a pick 6. There was the Dylan Sampson fumble on what he thought was an RPO and what Joe Milton thought was a drop back. And then there was the Jalen Wright fumble at the end of the half. But Dave, I counted, there were 3 other drives that were killed because of holding penalties that pushed Tennessee back, including one where Tennessee got to the 6-yard line. And now I don't think that was a hold on Jacob Warren, and Squirrel White definitely didn't hold, but they called them both for holding. and that was a drive killing mistake. So 3 holding penalties that killed 3 separate drives, 3 turnovers, a bad pitch on an option that had you go to 2nd and 16 and killed that. I mean, you can't make those drive killing mistakes. That was the opening drive of the second half. An option play with Milton to right, and Milton makes a terrible pitch, and Tennessee's playing from behind the 8 ball with that. And you just can't make those type of mistakes. And so I would say, because if you guys notice, it's not going to show up with the stat sheet because Tennessee only got like 300 yards, but they were moving the ball for most of the game. Milton was actually throwing the ball well. He was completing passes, but there would be some type of mistake, bad pitch, holding penalty, turnover that killed the drive every single time.
Okay, let's talk about Milton for a second. The Big Wrap brought to you by Harrell Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, making your children safer one school at a time. Harrell Group Security Solutions, that's harrellgrp.com. We're going to make schools safer and workplaces as well. We're going to avoid the tragedies that have been way too prominent in our country's history recently. So, Joe Milton, I don't have the stats in front of me. Maybe you can pull them up. Here are my thoughts on Joe Milton. Joe Milton still looks like, to me, a September player in November. And what I mean by that, he's still a little uncertain. I thought, and I think that it was the announcers brought up the fact that he threw the heater on the slant to Squirrel White in the end zone towards the end of the game. That was a factor. Kudos to Dante Thornton, who made a really tough catch on a ball that was a little bit underthrown. I'm not nitpicking. I don't think I really have to. To me, it's an innate thing where he just doesn't seem comfortable. And maybe that's just who he is. But give me the stats. Maybe they were okay. But he just doesn't. It feels like a preseason game in the NFL. Does that make any sense to you, Caleb, with Joe Milton all the time?
I get it, but I thought he was fine in the pocket. I mean, he did finish 22 of 34, 267 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Before the game got out of hand, at one point, before that pick 6 stride, he was 19 of, when you could theoretically say there was some sort of outside chance before the Dylan Sampson fumble, I guess, when it was 22-7. Because if you remember, Dave, it's 22-7. Dylan Sampson forces that fumble. Missouri goes down and scores. Then they have a pick 6, and that's the game. But before that, it's still a game, right? Like 22-7 with the ball, first down in Missouri territory, it's the game. It's still a game. And
yeah, I think it's a little bit debatable when that was a game. I felt like Tennessee didn't show up in the first quarter. I felt like this was going to go Missouri's way early on. So yeah, we could debate whether or not it's a game. At what
but mathematically, it's a game when you're in Missouri territory. And all I was getting at is at that point, he was 19 of 25 for 240 yards and a touchdown and no interceptions. At that point.
Yeah, I don't think he's the major concern. I want to ask this. What is your strongest concern with Josh Heupel after and I'm actually putting this into the YouTube channel as we speak, so you can vote it on our poll. What is your strongest concern with Josh Heupel after Missouri loss? Okay, so I'm popping that in there. And what do you think about road woes? How about quarterback evaluation? And what else do you want to put up there?
Road woes, quarterback evaluation, discipline.
Discipline's kind of wide ranging. How about
penalties?
How about late season struggles? And they want. I want to talk specifically about the state of the program, not just the Missouri game, is why I'm offering that up. Do you have one under road woes, quarterback evaluation, late season struggles?
I mean, I would still say penalties, wouldn't you? You wouldn't go with penalties?
Were they a problem? Were they a problem last year? I'm looking for
something.
Yeah,
now this is a unique. Tennessee's always going to be one of the most penalized teams because of the tempo they run. So maybe that's just something you accept that comes with the territory with Heupel's offense.
Let's throw out 3 for now. Road woes, quarterback evaluation, late season struggles.
Okay.
For me, it is the quarterback evaluation still, but it might not be for you. As for the road woes, Tennessee goes to Florida. We can wash that one away with the Cooper Mays injury if we want to, and we've probably been accused of that. But Tennessee also in the second half against Alabama fell flat. and then against Missouri fell flat. So do you think there is serious concern for the state of Tennessee's program when on the road?
Yeah,
Under
I don't
Josh
think how
Heupel.
you could. I don't think how you could look at it and think anything else. This is dating back to ever since Eric Ainge made the comments about Sanford Stadium last year. This has been a thing, and people will want to bring up Death Valley and LSU. That wasn't really a road game. It was, but it's LSU at noon does not have a home field advantage, guys. Anybody that knows that stadium, it's not a home field advantage when they're playing at noon.
Well, and
And
let's be real frank too. I mean, you and I were both high on LSU. They're not as good as we thought they were going to be. So
they're not.
that's another reason that I agree with everything you said. That's another reason that win wasn't there. So wasn't as impressive. Now, is that something that's fixable? Is that something that Josh Heupel can take care of? Because that's what when I ask the question, I'm thinking of 2025, 2026. What's still your concern? Because if it's quarterback evaluation, which is another option, Caleb, then you wonder what Tennessee has with Nico. Okay. So where would quarterback evaluation rank, keeping in mind, as you pointed out to me, Josh Heupel wanted to go with Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker for the longest time. You know, his quarterback has to be pretty good, Caleb. Did he luck into Hendon Hooker and things went well last year? Is that the end of the story? I don't think Tennessee fans expected that.
I mean, yes, but again, I gotta how much of this game is on Joe Milton though? And that's where I'm at, is because I thought he threw the ball fine. I thought the run game was poor. And let me narrow it real quick, and you tell me, because you know ball to a certain degree better than I do. But I could really go from here if you give me your thoughts. The run game was awful today. Do you think a big part of the run game was on a lot of those 3rd and 2s that got stopped? Do you think those were RPOs and Joe Milton didn't decide to keep it and he should have? Or do you think?
I think the run game struggled as Jalen Wright struggled, because I don't think Dylan Sampson was comfortable coming in at that point in the game. I think that kind of got it a little herky jerky. So I didn't see as much of an issue with RPOs.
Okay, because my question is, remember the opening drive where Milton handed it off and it was twice from 2nd and 3 and 3rd and 3 and it was stopped both times? I was going to wonder, was either of those an RPO and Milton chose to hand it off when he should have kept it? Because if that's the case, and he's still having trouble knowing when to keep it or not on runs, then yeah, that's a big concern with Milton. Because
that's a pretty simple read too. You just stare at the defensive end. I mean,
yeah. So then and if they're not giving him the option, at that point, Dave, I've not done this all year. I've not done this in 3 years here. If they're not giving Milton that option, then you got to question his quarterback evaluation and his play calling at that point.
Well, I mean, if you're not giving that option, he's going to get killed, unless they're doing something that I don't know about. I mean,
no, they're not giving Milton the option to keep, or they're just saying hand it off to Wright every time.
If they do, yeah, that would be a stunner to me if you don't really have the option.
Because Jimmy Hyams was suggesting that on our show a few weeks ago. And the reason I'm going there is if they're not giving him the option, then that means Heupel, you have to question his evaluation, because he's trying to force Milton to work while not even let him play free now because he doesn't have faith in him. And at the same time, I think this is more Milton. I'm with you. I think Milton is not keeping it enough on these 2nd and 3, 3rd and 3. I think there's so many times you're right. It's the easiest read in the country, right? Like Brady Cook doing it all game. And
It's stunning to me. Keep it coming on the message board. Now, Travis, who has been big on Joe Milton all year, and I had my questions early in the season, said play Nico. I can't tell if he's being serious or sarcastic, to be real honest with you. I will ask you this, since we're on the quarterback discussion. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe button for me if you don't care. Click like and subscribe right now. Take 1 second. We greatly appreciate it. We'll keep the Tennessee content coming to you, and SEC content as well. You don't have the SEC East to play for. You only have the championship of the state of Tennessee to play for with Vanderbilt.
Missouri's already won that, by the way. They beat Memphis, Vanderbilt, MTSU, and Tennessee.
That was a silly stat. Somebody has extra time on their hands to look that up. But I tell you, Caleb, that there could be an argument to hand it over to Nico right now. Hand it over to Nico as of tomorrow. Make an announcement at their team meeting on Sunday morning. At Sunday morning, at their team meeting, hand it over to him, because then you would have almost, you'd have half a month. Then you'd have another bowl practice leading into. You'd have almost half a season heading into next year with Nico being the guy. If Joe Milton had another year left, it'd be another discussion. But I think you can really have that discussion right now.
Okay, but is this what we're going to start doing now when a senior quarterback doesn't win? Like when nothing's out, when nothing's on the table anymore with your senior, you just throw him to the wayside and go with your freshman? Like in 1999, after Tennessee lost to Arkansas, should they have benched T. Martin and put Joey Matthews in for the rest of the year because they couldn't win the East and T. Martin was going to be gone?
Well, if they thought that Joey Matthews was the future, then I've got no problem with that.
I mean, I think they gave him the chance to be the future. They did start him in 2000.
Yeah,
so
well, you see how that went. All right, okay. Now, by the way, I'd make the break. I'd go Nico. I would just at the Sunday morning meeting, I would say, listen, I tried, guys. I thought this was the coach. Joe, we love you. You made a lot of money. I've seen you on billboards for some construction company in Knoxville. So you did pretty well with slightly above average. Well, I won't say above average talent, but if you count mental processing, then that's talent. Slightly above average play, you profited, you're going to go to the NFL. It's Nico's time. Step aside, Joe.
Dave, let me go back. Let me ask you.
Referring to him as Joe Garantano, by the way. It's Milton.
Let me ask you, because you were a Tennessee fan back in 1991, right? You were actually going to games and watching them the year of the Miracle at South Bend, right?
Well, I was playing football in my backyard and the Miracle at South Bend, and left my television only to come back at the very end and see that they came back.
Okay, well, let me just tell you the story of that year. Tennessee started 4-0, then they lost 2 straight to Florida and Alabama. The SEC title was out of reach. Andy Kelly was a senior. Everybody in the world knew that Heath Shuler was the future. Are you saying if you were coaching Tennessee in 1991 in November with 4 games left, you'd have benched Andy Kelly and said, hey, it's time for Heath Shuler?
No, because I think Andy Kelly's good.
But you thought Heath Shuler, everybody knew Heath Shuler was better, from what I understood during that time.
I didn't know that at the time. I mean, I heard he was incredibly athletic. You got to remember, recruiting coverage wasn't covered like that either. So everybody said, oh, he's supposed to be an incredible athlete. But everybody back then also thought if you were white, you're a pocket passer, and if you were black, that you ran. So everybody's really confused by hearing about this athletic guy that happens to be white. This is so confusing. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what I thought of Heath Shuler at the time. I was probably a little bit young too, but I know that I thought Andy Kelly was solid. I don't think Joe Milton is solid. I never did, Caleb. He's a great guy. His teammates love him. Darn it.
You're finishing 8-4 no matter what. You let Joe Milton finish the season, the last 2 games, finish 8-4, because we know that's what's going to happen. By the way, I'm not writing off Georgia still yet, because we know Tennessee is Jekyll and Hyde home and away. And if Georgia beats Ole Miss tonight, which they may not, because they know they won the East now, so they may actually just take the night off. But
Caleb, let me ask you this question. Does Tennessee have a better chance beating what I believe is the number 1 team in the nation? They can put them number 2 if they want. Do they have a better chance of beating them with Joe Milton or Nico? If you got to bet your mortgage on it tomorrow, if you're the head coach of the Vols and you only have to make one decision, then you give it back to
Joe Milton. Joe Milton, I think, gives them a better chance to beat Georgia than Nico right now.
Okay. I disagree. I don't think Joe Milton gave them a better chance than Nico to beat Austin Peay. I think from the get, Nico was the answer. I've thought that all along.
You have thought that all along, but I mean, I think at this point, you know how the season's finishing. And I don't think there's this
would invigorate the fan base.
There's nothing you got Georgia coming to town. You don't have to invigorate them.
What's the storyline? Okay, let me ask you this. What's the storyline if Tennessee's quarterback completes 18 of 24 passes for 280 yards, runs for 2 touchdowns, throws for 2 touchdowns, but Tennessee loses to Georgia 40-30? Okay. The storyline, if it's Joe Milton, is Tennessee's stumbling down the stretch against Georgia, which was expected. If it's Nico with that same stat line, you're like, get excited. Next year's coming. Roll out the billboard campaign.
But are you sure Nico's going to do that if he's playing?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure Joe's not. That's my point. I think based off all I've heard, I think that Joe Milton will be able to. I'm sorry. I think that Nico will be able to do that. I don't think Joe Milton will be able to. Let me put this in here 1 sec. I tell you what, the absolute best when it comes to the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechat with 2ts.com, hemphousechat with 2ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK. That's HOOK for 10% off. Hemphousechat with 2ts.com. Love it. You were saying? Sorry to interrupt, Caleb.
No, that's all. That's fine. What I would say is that I still think there's an element of keeping the team together because of players for next year. And I don't think it's a big deal whether or not you win or lose to Georgia. You're going to beat Vanderbilt. You're finishing 8-4. Now, what I will say, I'll give you this, Dave, in a diplomatic way. If you're Josh Heupel, you go to Joe Milton for bowl practices. You go, hey, Joe, might be in your best interest to go ahead and focus on the NFL draft and opt out of the bowl game. Like, I am all for that. I am all for just going.
I think that conversation would be had. I definitely think that would be had. Travis says at this point, if a change isn't made, don't you have to question Heupel's coaching? It's a great point.
No, not in that instance.
I mean, I do. I wonder, would Tennessee have kept Joe Milton out there had he not gotten hurt in 2021, and would he have been the starter in 2022? That's why quarterback evaluation is one of my big deals. So by the way, on the poll that you can take part of right now on our YouTube channel, what is your strongest concern with Josh Heupel after Missouri loss? Road woes 67%, quarterback evaluation 21%, late season struggles 11%. Let me ask you this as well. What about Eli Drinkwitz calling the timeout late and rubbing Tennessee's nose in it? I know Josh Heupel ran up the score last year. At least I thought he ran up the score. But is that the new villain? I picked him out early, Caleb. I knew that was the guy that Tennessee fans should hate. Running up the score is one thing. Calling a timeout to run it up or make the other team stand in it was awful. And it's really reckless because it almost resulted in a fight where some of your players could be out next week. That's the new guy to hate. That's your Steve Spurrier, but he's not as quippy and he's not as talented in coaching. Other than that, that's your new guy to hate. And don't hate him because Steve Spurrier, you hated Steve Spurrier because he's so smart. You hate this guy because he's just a big doofus. Sorry.
And so you're saying it's the guy to hate because you think Missouri, as I told you guys leading into the week, is on Tennessee's level as a program. Well,
historically, you caught a lot of heat from that on the YouTube channel. Historically, I think there's one way to clear it up. Historically, I think that you would say Tennessee is on another level. If you want to look at recent history, then there's an argument to be made. Is that a fair way of putting it?
That's exact. Yeah, that's all I was going with it. And I said there's ancient history, there's history, and then there's recent history. Tennessee dominates ancient history, but again, that's like if like Italy were to brag about like the Roman Empire compared to like England, who's a better country. Like, well, we are the Roman Empire, okay?
You take that democracy and shove it. We came up with these fancy golden goblets.
The kneeling years are basically like Roman Empire era for football, okay? It's that old. And it means the longer away it goes, the lesser and lesser it means. And then history is the 90s. Recent history is the 2000s. And I'm sorry, in the 2000s, the series is now tied historically, Tennessee and Missouri, 6-6.
Caleb is now doing an Eli Drinkwitz thing where he's rubbing your nose in it. Hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. I think that a couple of things that were disappointing is Missouri handled Tennessee like they were Kentucky or Vanderbilt on a bad day, right? I thought Tennessee's program was beyond that they would show up completely flat. And they're not beyond that to the point where, like, when they showed up in the ancient history, like you're talking about the 90s and before, they'd show up flat to Vanderbilt and Kentucky and they'd win because they were more talented. They're not that good. They're just not that good yet. So they need to realize that. And Tennessee, I think, needs to set a real tone for the remainder of the season. You talk about losing the program. What if going with Nico over Joe Milton actually invigorates some younger players in the program, actually says that you have to be accountable, that you can work as hard as you can and be a great dude, but if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And I'm sorry, that's life.
Yeah, but if you're holding accountable, then you need to bench like 3 offensive linemen too at this point. because of how bad the run game was today. You're saying Jalen Wright should start next week because he was horrible today too.
No.
I mean,
No. I thought Jalen Wright got banged up early and had a bad fumble. I don't know. With running backs, don't you always kind of give them the benefit of the doubt when they get banged up early? I kind of like half the time I'd rather them just sit.
I don't know though because
where's Jabari Small?
Now Tennessee doesn't. I think he came in and only. Yeah, why hasn't he?
I mean, all year long. I'm not just talking about tonight. I'm talking about all year long.
And this is and by the way, for maybe Tennessee should have adopted some zone reads on their end, but maybe they don't trust their running backs with vision. One of the big things of this game tonight, Cody Schrader. That's one of the most patient running backs I've ever seen, Dave. I don't know about you, but I mean, have you ever seen a guy that's so patient? He reminds me of Edgerrin James. Remember when Edgerrin James would so patiently wait for the hole to open before he hit it?
I'm just glad you didn't say something to the effect of, "Oh, he's a real coach's type of player. He's a workout warrior. He's a gym rat." All this stuff they say about white
guys. A tough guy. He's a gritty player.
All the stuff they say about white guys.
Oh, wait, is Cody Schrader white? I thought he was light skinned. Is he white?
I don't know. I guess I really don't see race because I don't. I thought he was. Is he not? All right.
The running back?
All right.
No, the running back. Cody Schrader is.
I thought he was.
Oh, well, maybe he is. He's ambiguous. Definitely racially ambiguous. We'll go with that.
Is that what the site says? Is that what his site says? Aren't we all going to be racially ambiguous at one point?
What is Cody Schrader? Is Cody Schrader black or white?
Elias says, I don't know. I think they've generally made the right call by putting Wright and Sampson ahead of Small. I totally agree, but you'd like for Jabari Small to be ready to go in a pinch. Let me ask you this: Joe Milton reminds you more of Jamarcus Russell or Joe Garantano?
Jared Garantano.
Jared Garantano.
Oh, Jamarcus Russell, because Jamarcus Russell did have production in college and his big arm. But remember this: his skill set. I want to be fair to Joe on this. His skill set reminds me of Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell was a bust half because of his skill set, half because he was just a really lazy player who didn't care. He was the
Kyler Murray previously that had to have it written in his contract that he had to watch film,
and he didn't. Yes, and as Stephen A. had the best quote in it one time, he's like, Jamarcus Russell clearly got his money from the holdout, and he obviously spent it on a bunch of donuts. Okay,
and scissor.
Because he became a fat slobber quarterback.
That's like Caleb being required, or me being required to wear a shirt. That's just part of it. All right, he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. Want to thank Harrell Group Security Solutions. We're with you after each and every Tennessee game, so it'll be Georgia next week. Caleb, do you think Tennessee can pick up the pieces and put together a yeoman's effort and play Georgia close or even beat them?
Yeah, I think they could actually still beat them. I'm going to be honest with you, and I think that y'all can call me crazy on that. Tennessee hasn't lost a game at home in 2 years to this point. And also, talk about picking up the pieces. Now, this is one, I can't believe it. I've thrown it out all year, but I'm going to bring it up now. Didn't they do that in the Orange Bowl back in January? They were excited to be there, even though that they lost. Let me a chance at the college football playoff.
Let me say this: if you really believe that Tennessee can beat Georgia with Joe Milton, then I'm changing my stance of not making the change to Nico. Now I don't believe that, but based off your premise, I'm going to change my thought process. I don't, but okay. So roll with Joe a little bit longer. And let's see what happens on Saturday at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, no, I think they can. Now, here's Dave. This is for those of you who are watching the show Sunday. This is hinging on what happens with Georgia Ole Miss.
Don't even worry about that. Don't even worry about that. It just makes it confusing. It just makes it confusing. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker with you weekdays at 10 a.m. We love visiting with you. Also, the Sunday show is a lot of shows. The Sunday show with Fred brought to you by Harrell Group Security Solutions. Fred White will join us. Also, the Vol Report with Jacob Warren and our good friend Cooper Mays. We get to visit with him, who recovered another fumble. Last time he did so, he said, "Did you see me recover that fumble? Quick like a cat." So we'll discuss that. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation